Hello, in this video we're going to be going over how to add a custom export, which could also be just any custom type of report with specific fields that your client wants. So for this we're going to go under payroll functions, export engine, and data sources. I've got several data sources here, but the one we'll be wanting is FN export no codes. We add new record if you don't already have it. Give it anything for a code. The data source name will be FN export no codes. And we want to make sure that we've spelled this right and that it's picked up right. We're going to select validate DS, which is validate data source. It picks it up. I see it here. We would simply need to click save. Once the data source has been added, we can go to our payroll functions, export engine, and exports configuration. You can see I've got quite a few different ones here for different types of reports or payroll exports. What we want to do is click add new export. And again, the code, whatever you want for recognizable, as long as it doesn't match any of the other codes that you currently have for your exports, it's fine. Make it as short and sweet to the point. The name, whatever you have in mind to be recognizable for the client. I normally go with delimited records, but you could do fixed length as well. I haven't really played with the XML, so I'm not real familiar with that. Export delimiter, I'm going to use a comma. If you were using fixed length, I know that you could use the letter T for tabbed. But again, for this demo, we're going to use a comma. The file name, what we want it to save as. And I'm going to use CSV. A CSV file will come out and can be opened with Excel so they can manipulate the data from the report, sort, copy, paste, things like that. The data source, we're going to use the one that we had just created, our FN export no codes. There's little minor differences in some of these that come up. One of them is FN export standard, I believe. That's used more along the line if you're going to build something that simply has a column for pay code and then a column for hours, whereas the no codes was written so that we can add regular hours, overtime, personal, things like that, and not have to rely on a simple pay code. If you want headers to be on the report, you would select header required, and then we're going to click add new. We'll leave the record set number alone, and we're going to go right to the column name. So the first thing I want to put on here is the other ID, which is the employee ID. That'll be in column 1, and I'll call it EE number. The next thing I may want to see is the employee name. You could do a separate column for first name, then another one for last name, and so forth. I'll just put the employee name. I want it in one column. We'll have column 2. We'll select quote marks for here so that it doesn't try to make 2 columns for the first and the last name. We'll call this one employee name. Add new again. And maybe we want the department hours to come out, so we'll select work level code, column 3. If I wanted to make spaces in between the employee name and the work level description, I could always use an empty value. If I wanted a column that had a specific value. For instance, maybe the letter E needs to come out. I could choose static value, and then in the static value box, place the letter E. And that would mean that each line of the report on column C would have the letter E in it. We're going to go back up here and choose the work level 2 code. I'm going to call this department and save. Now I want to come and I want to see regular hours and 0.00, export position 4, and if I choose none, it's going to break the report out by each slice of in-out time they have for the duration that we're choosing of the report. So if they worked 5 days and had 5 ins and outs, then there would be 5 lines per employee. But I want this to sum all their hours based on the work level 2, which is our department. I go ahead and click save, add new, and you'll notice it stays on sum for me here. So I'm going to go up and choose my overtime. Column 5. And again, 0.00, and I want it to sum those hours. I click save, and this is the information that's going to come out on my report. So we're going to save this. One other thing that I didn't mention here, we can have it run by pay period list, so in other words, the pay period date range, or we can select date range here, and when running the report, your client would be prompted to put in the to and from date. I'm going to go ahead and leave it on pay period list. I'm going to click save. And I could run it from here, but without having to do a refresh, I'm just going to come over and run export. This is how your client would run it. Custom report. Pay period state, if it's this pay period, they would select active. If it's for a prior pay period that they have not yet closed, it would be in pending. If it's for a pay period that has been closed, of course it would be in closed. So let's see if I've got any data in one of these pay periods here. Run export. It brings it up. There's the name I'm having it select. I click save. And we open the report and see what came out. So the employee number, the employee name, the department they worked in, and how much time and how much overtime for that. That concludes our tutorial video on adding in a custom export.